It is the second day of August 2015, and this is the Radical Agnostic, the place where ideology goes to die. Episode 22. My name is John. With me today, two previous guests on Brian's microphone, mic number 4, Donald Taylor, everybody.
Yes, indeed.
Nice to have you here, man. Thank you for coming on this hot and sweaty day.
Very hot, very sweaty.
On mic number 2, in place of Mark Beef, the lovely, the amazing Katie Rogers.
Hello, interweb land.
Thank you also for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
I think besides episode 1, where you get that initial excitement from your friends, the episode you were on has the most views and listens.
Really?
Yeah, you must have a lot of friends out there that clicked on that shit.
I did tell a lot of people about it. Yeah. Interesting. That's cool. Wow.
I told everyone about mine. I didn't get it. It was like, yeah, whatever, dude. Yeah, we know you already.
Yeah, we don't need to hear you talking.
You're good.
That's kind of what my friend Ryan says. He does. He's listened to like 5 or 6 of them, but and I call him usually every Sunday afterwards just to chat and talk about stuff. He lives in Philly, and he was kind of saying in as polite a way as possible. He was like, "Yeah, man, I already know you really well, so I don't really need to listen to you talk about things."
Yeah.
It's kind of that whole thing that a prophet is never accepted in his own country, right? I think Jesus said that, and I've always felt that I'm very similar to Jesus.
Affinity to JC.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Brian is backpacking in the Sierra Mountains up in California right now. So
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah. It is, the wilderness is his church, I believe, is what he says, and he loves it up there.
Awesome.
With his steadfast wife, Christine, who was on the show a couple times ago, and she's up there with him, trucking along. She's really tough.
Yeah, that's when I first met Brian, was with when he and Chris, I think, just got married. Yeah, I remember her.
Yeah,
cool.
She's really cool.
Awesome.
Oh, that must have been like 22 years ago.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't age me like that. It was just last year.
Yeah.
It was just a little while ago.
Yeah. And Mark told me this morning that he moved to Nogales, which is very close. And but his dad has cancer, so he's taking care of him right now. But I'm quite sure that he'll be back next week and on subsequent shows. So don't despair out there. Mark will be back to scream at me.
I'll try to stand him.
Yeah, just
for him as
fill
well
that
as
void.
I can.
Okay, so if I say anything about Bernie Sanders, basically scream at me that I'm an idiot.
I will.
That's
I'll
what
tell
Mark.
You're an idiot
that's the role that he
you
plays.
know nothing.
Yeah.
And what's the matter with you?
And that Bernie's a Democrat and he's just going to be a corrupt piece of shit.
Yeah.
He went off on that, didn't he?
Yes.
Oh, man.
That and free speech
Yes.
really get him going. Which is a good thing to be passionate about.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, Ronda Rousey, the greatest
So badass.
female combatant
of
all time.
She did it all with her stand-up game. She knocked her the fuck out.
Absolutely.
Ronda Rousey,
Beautiful.
a female MMA competitor, also an Olympian, judo silver medal Olympian, fought last night in Brazil against Beth Correa. Widely anticipated fight. This woman was talking shit for several months.
Said things about her dad.
What?
Committing suicide.
Yeah.
That's my thing. How do you talk that much shit and get your ass whooped in 34 seconds?
Oh God! You know she didn't want to.
Yeah,
man.
it's like.
Oh,
did you see the weigh-in?
Yeah,
Oh,
when
yeah.
she was
She
just
was
she was just
Yeah.
in her face,
She
and
hates
Ronda
her.
was just stoic.
Did you hear too that Bet told her mom, Bet's mom, that she was going to break her jaw, Ronda's jaw?
Told Ronda's mom?
No, told her
Her own
mom.
mother?
Yeah, that she was going to break Ronda's jaw for her.
Aw.
Here, Mom, we're going to break her
It's
jaw.
a nice thing.
She didn't even come close.
No, she landed a couple rabbit punches,
A couple
but
little punches. But
Ronda was just
swarmed.
a steamroller.
Yeah, she just swarmed.
You can't talk about somebody's father and then just wet the bed like that.
Yeah.
No, it was
What the
terrible.
hell?
She was
And she
sleeping,
just,
man,
I mean, she
on
just
her
fell
face.
the fuck asleep so fast. Like, just one decent right to the temple, and she was out.
It was well, there was a few connected punches.
Yeah, but
there.
I think that one is
That
the
one
one
was
that
the
brought
one.
her down, and she just slumped forward like a.
It was a face
Like a
down,
stuffed
ass
animal.
up
Yeah.
type of situation.
And she was ready to receive. I don't.
Imagine
when you talk that much shit though, like
Imagine watching your fight the next day, and that's you, just looking like a hamburger,
Right.
all messed up on the ground like
And
that.
she didn't. I thought it was interesting because usually, I mean, always after these championship fights, they interview the challenger afterwards. They interview the person who lost, unless it was the champ, and then usually it's like, let them go and lick their wounds. But I don't think she stuck around to be interviewed.
No?
She must have left.
I don't know. Does she speak English?
No, but they have translators.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have liked to see Joe Rogan's interview
Yeah.
with her.
Well, it's like have the respect to say, hey, you won. Like, good job. Like she just couldn't even say that.
Yeah. Well, you can't. I mean, the talking smack thing is part of the game. Everyone knows
it's
that,
part of
but
the
there's a
game, but-
limit. There's a limit. You don't do
Yeah, she went
families.
really
yeah,
far.
she went family. Then she was talking shit at the weigh-in. and
Yeah.
fist pumping and all this other shit. 34 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh man, she thought she was ready. She wasn't.
I don't know if she'd ever be ready for
And that was
Ronda.
just the stand-up. That's not even Ronda's best.
Well, yeah, and the
quality.
thing is, Ronda brought it to her,
The way
brought
she
her
brings
fight
it.
to her, and she couldn't even do it.
in Brazil too. Yeah.
In Brazil.
I love that.
So-
Isn't Ronda the one who said she wanted it to be in Brazil?
I don't know.
I thought that
She doesn't care.
I don't think she cares where she whoops ass.
Yeah.
I think it's
then
great that
didn't
she got
even-
her ass kicked in her home country.
Right.
She didn't even mention the competitor when she did have her post-fight interview. She just dedicated the whole thing to
Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper.
Oh, he
which
was my hero when I was younger.
Yeah, a lot of people feel really emotional about his death, and
Yeah.
I remember him, of course, especially from They Live, that movie, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
love.
Mm-hmm.
But I never watched wrestling, so I didn't.
I did when I was a kid, and he
Yeah.
was my favorite.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
so
killed.
Ronda's a powerhouse, man. I mean, there's not much left to throw at her.
I think it's gonna. I was telling my friends that I think the person who's going to be able to defeat her is going to be just some young upstart that
Yeah,
comes
right.
out of nowhere, that hasn't been around, hasn't been on the scene, has been training like Ronda, and just comes in and upsets, pulls an upset. I
Well,
don't see how
like
anyone
a Buster
in.
Douglas type deal.
or little Gabby at our gym.
Oh, I'm telling
Just
you.
wait 10 years. She's
Jesus.
12, 13, about 90 pounds maybe. Maybe 80.
Jesus.
Mhm.
And she now trains with the adults, with the men.
Wow.
And she's still too tiny to really do damage, but
Mhm.
her technique is flawless.
Mm.
And if you give her an armbar, like she can't quite take one if you're just like defending and saying no, just because she doesn't have that power yet.
Yeah.
But she will someday when she grows up. But if you give her the arm a little bit and
She'll
let her
take
take it, you'll have to tap. Like you won't be able to like reach and get out.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And she's awesome, man. She has like a closet, like a suitcase full of gold medals in jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know, someday she might get into MMA. I think
I've
that
seen
is her goal.
I've
Yeah.
seen her make boys cry at the tournament.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Aw.
They have to fight boys a lot of times when there's no female.
Mhm.
The girls there, and she just taps them out one after the
Wow.
next. So.
And I mean, they're balling.
Yeah, and I would too. It's humiliating. That's the problem with a male versus female fight. It's a lose-lose for the male.
But here's
Yeah,
what
that's
if,
true.
if you win, you're an asshole who beat up a girl.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you lose, you got beat by a girl.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, that's a good point,
lose-lose.
yeah.
I have seen her beat grown women though. Like
Yes.
it was at the tournament in Tucson. She tapped like two grown women.
A blue, or was that Miranda tapped a blue belt?
I think
woman.
Miranda tapped a blue belt woman.
Yeah.
But I've seen Gabby tap grown women like it was
Wow.
nothing.
She's 13.
I think so. Was she 13?
Either 12 or 13. She's
yeah.
tiny.
Oh, she's gonna.
But
Yeah,
she-
if she keeps going.
Yeah. Anyway, so we were also what we were chatting about before the show started, ISIS. And why did I bring that up again? Because we were talking about the rich people in the Middle East and Dubai. Paula was showing us pictures of a double wide Hummer.
Right.
It was like two Hummers glued side by side together.
How do you drive it? I don't understand.
It would take up 3 lanes. Anyway, there's this huge culture of ultra wealthy, oil families
Yeah.
over there, and real estate developers and other stuff, and it's just like completely separate from the whole Muslim culture and everything. It's in Iran too.
But they're Muslim, right?
They probably are by name.
Yeah.
Sort of like the president. All of our presidents are Christians.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, and some of them really were. Like Jimmy Carter, he was a super Christian, and probably George W. and a lot of the Republicans are true believers. But so we were talking about these ultra rich, and they own tigers and stuff, and it's all just showing off. It's all just a display of wealth. It's that nouveau riche thing where it's just gaudy, disgusting display of excess. And I was talking about how I never watched those ultra violent videos online, like the beheadings and stuff. I can't do it. Well, I don't want to. I just don't want to.
I can't. I'm like super visual, and that's why I love horror movies, but I have a hard time watching horror movies that are based on torture.
Yeah.
Because I can't get the image out of my head, and it will make me literally like almost throw up. I just can't.
That's why I was a huge horror fanatic, and I kind of drifted away from it because they just keep trying to outdo themselves. And now, like you said, it's just too real. It's too. I just don't. Even if it's fake, I don't want to see human suffering.
I don't like the fact that people are thinking it up and putting it into that form where you can see it happening.
Yeah.
Like it's too much.
There are still some really good horror movies though that use like an intellectual thing.
I like psychological horror.
Yeah.
A lot. Like one of my favorite horror movies is the Blair Witch Project.
I love that movie.
There's no blood. There's no scary monsters. There's no psychotic, psychopaths murdering people. And the final scene where the guy is in the basement, staring in the corner, like
such a great climax.
What happened?
Yeah.
What did he see? What And
I can remember thinking that was real.
Me too.
Me too.
I was pretty young. I was like 12 or 13 when that came out, and my friend Al, there was no internet, so my friend Al told me, or I mean, maybe there was an internet, but none of us knew about it. He told me that it was real.
I thought it was real too.
So I went I walked to the mall from my house, and I went in by myself, and the theater was almost empty, which made it even more creepy because it had already been out for like a month. So I watched it, and I was terrified. I was really scared, and then I walked home, and the sun had gone down, and I was all scared in the dark. And then, of course, it turned out, and with a little bit of thought, it's pretty obvious that it is fake. But if you want to believe, and you're young and stuff, you can think that it's real. And that was terrifying.
I thought it was like. I think what I thought is that it was based on a true story. So I thought, okay, elements of it are real, and if elements of it are real, which ones are
right?
And whatever ones are, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
I thought it was real until they showed up on, I think it was Jay Leno. And I was like, really?
Yeah, the actors?
Yeah, I was just like, see, now I'm pissed off now.
Okay.
Because I really thought like that was real.
Well, the hate that those movies get, I think that part of that is that people are kind of scared and they don't like it. They get angry at movies that actually freak them out. So you know how there's always so many vocal people about those found footage and other horror movies, and they're always like, "That's so stupid." Blah blah blah. I think they get mad because they were a little scared and they don't like that. The rest of us like that. Right? We think like that's the sign of a great movie if we have an emotional reaction to it. But to them, they're put out by it. They're like, I don't like that you.
The only found footage ones that I find that annoy me is that when it gets to the point where it's like ridiculous, like this person's not filming anymore.
Right.
There's no way that this person is still filming. Like the camera is on the ground and it's just looking at a wall or something, exactly. And maybe you're hearing a bunch of screaming and stuff, but you're not seeing anything.
Yeah, and then because they have to address the camera throughout the movie, so there's always someone who's getting mad, like, "Dude, stop filming!" Like, But he's just this guy who's obsessed with filming. I mean, this guy is in every found footage movie. He really likes filming.
Got a new camera, guys.
Yeah, I got to record this, man. Paranormal Activity was pretty good too. The first one,
the first one was good.
That was kind of creepy.
I think like the fourth one gets kind of ridiculous. It's like, no, they're not filming anymore. That person's got to be dead by now. There's no way.
Yeah, because the first one with the standing over the bed, that was a novel thing because they speed up the footage. That was interesting.
Yeah, the first one I thought was great. The second one was okay, but then they started getting ridiculous.
A few of us saw that in the theater here in Tucson, and man, that was the most lively crowd I've ever seen in a theater, and it was great. It was just like screaming and gasping and girls hugging their boyfriends and boyfriends hugging the stranger to the and it was just like, it was fun and awesome. And I usually don't like people talking during movies, but I loved that. It was just like high energy and awesome. Anyway, what we were talking about is that I saw this video of these ISIS guys driving along a highway in Dubai or one of these cities, and there's these super rich guys driving, and it's like a Mustang or whatever, some red sports car with their sunglasses on and blasting like pop, hip hop or something. And these ISIS guys just lean out with AK-47s and just spray the car. Jesus. And it's a horrible, horrible scene. And the car goes off the road, and the ISIS guys pull over and go back. And the guy, these young men, they're like 18, and they're just sitting slumped over in the car, just with blood pouring out. And they like finish them off. And
fuck, man.
I don't know what that video really was, but supposedly that was something uploaded by ISIS that they had done. And so it's interesting because it shows you that there's this division out there in the Middle East, too. It's not all, everyone living in a tent and everyone's poor. There's a lot of very wealthy people out there basically embracing Western values, and that's what really chaps the ass of ISIS and other religious fundamentalists.
I'm sure it does, but so I could see them, killing off those people or slaughtering them because of what they represent. But it seems like to this point, ISIS just wants to kill anyone that's not ISIS. Right. They're not just killing Christians, and they're not just killing, what is it? Is it Shiite Muslims that are the Shiite?
I don't want to get it wrong.
I don't want to get it wrong either. I don't know. There's some sect of Islam that the president of Iraq belongs to, and initially it seemed to me, from what I've read, that that's the sect of Islam that ISIS was going after.
But it's really both.
And now it's to the point where they're just going after anyone. I don't think it matters if you believe in their particular sect of Islam or not. I just think that if you're not in their group and you're not going around killing people or doing what you need to do to help keep ISIS going, that you're a target. And like they're kind of like this big serial killer crew or something who happen to be Muslim. But I don't even think that their religion is really what's driving them. I don't think that that belief in their particular deity and their particular prophet is what is motivating them. I think it's that they want to control people, and they want people to live in fear of them so that they can have power. Right. And that's all it is. I don't think they're reciting the Quran as they're going into battle. I think they're just psychotic.
I think they're just like, we got the means to kill a lot of people, so let's just do it.
Well, it's a very interesting question. What motivates them? How religious they are? I know in that Vice documentary you were talking about, I saw that too. And they, the cities that ISIS had taken over, they were enforcing Islamist law, Sharia law, in those regions. So they were driving around finding if you were selling food that wasn't halal,
it would kill you,
or if you were doing, breaking all of their crazy rules. If a woman was out by herself or something, so they were, rounding people up. Well, and they were like, actually, it was like a bureaucratic system. They were like handing out tickets and stuff if you were breaking the law. And they actually had a court system. They had taken over the city court, and they actually had, ISIS was in control of it, and they had people making complaints, and you could go up to the window and
But are they doing that because they're trying to promote their particular form of religion, because they want people to convert, because they want people to be saved, they want people to come to believe in what they believe? Or are they doing that because they want to control people, because they want to have power, they want to gain land, they want the weapons, they want the material, they want the resources?
I mean, if that was it, though, if that was their sole purpose, wouldn't they pick a less extreme ideology that would be more attractive? So wouldn't they become a political force rather than a terrorist group?
I don't know, because, not if you're not if you are, not if you're part of whatever social class that most people that join ISIS are coming from.
Right.
Those people don't have any political power.
Right.
They have there's no possibility that they can move up the ranks and become like a wealthy politician who, has some power. So the only way that I think most people that are joining that group have a voice and can have control is by committing terrorist acts. They can't do it in a, quote, legitimate way.
Yeah, I think it's like power and violence. You can make anybody do anything with violence.
I read 2 interesting studies that showed that Islamist terrorists had a significant psychological profile in common with school shooters. Because I was very interested in that. I was getting kind of pissed off at the Bill Maher's and the Sam Harrises who've been out there saying that Islam is worse than
is inherently violent.
These are huge. These are hardcore atheists, and they hate Christianity, they hate Judaism, they hate Buddhism, but they hate Islam more. And they're like, I'm not sure what their message exactly is. It's like people should hate Islam more. Seems to be their message, or at least we should recognize that they're against our liberal values more than any other religion on earth right now.
Well, I think that is what Morrow's trying to do was Religulous, right? Was that the movie?
That's
documentary?
just. I think I didn't see it, but that's just all about how religion is stupid in general.
Yeah. So his documentary deals with Christianity and just looks at all the absurd ideas and beliefs that are underlying like fundamentalist Christianity.
Right.
And then he looks at Islam as well, and what he ends up coming down to with Islam is he's interviewing a woman, I think it's in Indonesia, and she's got the burqa on and everything, and they're talking, and he says, well, isn't it true that maybe moderate Muslims don't want to kill non-believers themselves, but they're really okay with other Muslims killing them. It's really not that big of a deal.
Right.
Like, isn't it really true that if you're not a true believer, then you really at some point don't need to exist in the eyes of most Muslims? And I mean, I'm totally paraphrasing him, but for the most part, this particular woman, and she's not representative of all Muslims, so it could be a bunch of crap, but this particular woman couldn't really say that wasn't true.
Well,
and so he was trying to say, like, look, so out of all the religions, yes, Christianity's terrible, but for the most part, what's happening now in present day is that it's more likely that a Muslim is going to think that if you're a non-believer, you need to be taken out than a Christian. Which
is statistically true, I'm sure. But and the polling to support Bill Maher, the polling is kind of unsettling because you'll find they'll poll people in like Britain, like Muslims in the UK, and they'll be like, "What did you think of this terrorist bombing?" And they'll be like, "Well, it was bad." Most of them will say, "Oh, that's terrible." But then you say, "Well, yeah, but theoretically, were these Islamist terrorists sort of doing the right thing for Islam?" Even though you don't support it, and like 30 to 40%, depending on where you go, will say yes. They'll kind of support they would never do it, but they do think, according to the book, that it is correct.
Well, I wonder if you ask Christians a similar thing. So, for example, if you ask Christians after the Oklahoma City bombing,
or the assassination of an abortion doctor, maybe
that's a good one. That's a better. That's a better comparison. So,
do you think it was a good thing? Like 90-something% of American Christians probably say no. But do you understand? Maybe if you worded it like, do you understand the moral motivations for killing that doctor?
For them to do that.
Yeah. Then you're going to get a much higher.
But the thing is, there are like within the Christian religion in this country, there are quite a lot of people who are liberal politically, who identify as Christian, and who don't believe the Bible, says that abortion is a sin. Like, don't believe the Bible speaks to it at all.
Well, it doesn't.
Right.
Well, it doesn't speak to it specifically, but the idea of murder. But then it's weird. So then you have very conservative Catholics who are against abortion, and they're also against the death penalty. they take the "thou shalt not murder" commandment very, very literally.
And to me, that's
which
pretty
really
consistent.
You should. If you're going to live by the commandments, then you don't. There's no wiggle room in "thou shalt not kill."
Right.
There's no wiggle room at all.
Well, of course, though, with all this interpretations, there is wiggle room in the sense of how you interpret the ancient Hebrew or the Aramaic, and so they'll say. A lot of people will say Christians who support war, which is probably the majority of Christians in America, support some wars.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll say, well, I thought it was thou shalt not kill. And they'll say, no, if you read the Hebrew and it's thou shalt not murder. So it's not kill, it's murder. You shouldn't, which murder is I guess, an illegal form of killing or something. So
that would make sense because certainly the Hebrews killed when they were going to war and
all day long,
the tribal battles and stuff. So
yeah, so and yeah, but I agree with you that if you are against abortion, you should be against the death penalty as well, and probably war too.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess there are, like I said, there are explanations for how you can wiggle around those.
So what is where do we get to? What does it help? What does it solve? To say, okay, look, it's clear that Islam is more awful than Christianity. Okay.
Right now.
So
especially
let's say,
right now, people have no historical perspective. It's like if we were alive during the Crusades, there would be no difference between who was more horrible, the Christians or the Muslims. They were both just doing horrible things.
Yeah, they were both doing really awful things.
Medieval Christianity was terrible.
Yeah.
So that's why my opinion on the subject is that it's a socioeconomic problem, and that Islam happens to be centered in a region of the world that has no money.
It's extremely poor, yeah.
Or where the money is all being filtered to the super rich, that oil money. There's actually lots of revenue and money over there, but it's not being given to the citizens.
And also the whacked out Christian extremists tend to come from poor rural areas, it seems.
Look at African countries.
Yeah.
Where homosexuality is punishable by death in several African countries right now. That's why Obama went over there recently to Kenya, and they were so happy. I mean, he's a superstar. He's better than Michael Jordan to them, but he's against. He's okay with homosexuality, and they're not.
Yeah, they're totally not. Yeah.
So it was a very tense thing when, and he actually. I'm glad that he had the balls to say that, mention that while he was there.
I didn't know that he did, but good for him.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
He's like, come on, guys, like with the hating of the gays, like let's loosen it up a little.
Kill the gay people.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now.
You're gonna have gay people. You can't pretend like you don't. Yeah, I love some of the leaders for certain countries that outlaw homosexuality. Like we'll actually say things like, there are no gay people in my country.
Yeah.
Really?
Not a good place to start your argument with a
Probably
demonstrably false.
Like,
Yeah.
let alone, come on now. It's 2015. Come on.
Probably means that you're gay.
Yeah.
Honestly.
More than likely you're
say
gay.
something like that.
Thinking about it right now.
So I looked it up. I looked it up, and Iran is the Shia Muslim sect, which is the minority by far. So everyone else basically is Sunni. Like Iraq must have been Sunni, and Saudi Arabia maybe also. And because Saudi Arabia,
my understanding is like the more chill, right?
Well,
you're like more like you don't get to kill everyone.
One of them is
you don't have to always wear the burqa. Whatever.
Yeah, one of them is that that Muhammad and his direct relations are the only ones who can be revered as the what do they call the priests, the high priests?
I can't remember.
Not mullah, but it starts with an O. Anyway, imam, something like that. The leaders of Islam could only be direct descendants of Muhammad, and the other sect, but I don't know which one, says that there was like a cousin of Muhammad, and that line is the true line. So I'm messing that up totally, but that's the argument basically. And
so
then
many details.
So if you're a third cousin, you're out.
You're out.
Yeah.
So so Iran is Shia, and that's the one that's a very much minority. Most of the other countries over there are Sunni, and Saudi Arabia though practices Wahhabism, and that's a very tiny minority of Islam, and that's basically the Westboro Baptist Church of Islam. It's literal translation of the Quran. So just like in America, well, Americans basically invented biblical literalism and Christian fundamentalism. Most people don't know that. Most fundamentalist Christians have a terrible grasp of history, and they believe that their whole thing about creation and Noah and all this nonsense has been around for 2,000 years. It hasn't. It's an American phenomenon. It's 100 years old. This whole fundamentalist movement. It's well documented. So Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia is the Islam version of that, where they translate the Quran literally. And so Saudi Arabia, this rich country, which kind of screws with my theory about socioeconomics, because Saudi Arabia is really wealthy, but they're promoting this extreme literalist interpretation of the Quran to all these other countries. That's why all these terrorists are basically coming from Saudi Arabia.
Then how does the United States? How does the United States justify continuing to have a relationship with Saudi Arabia, especially because they're doing public executions?
Best friends with them. It's the biggest, it's the biggest contradiction in global politics.
Money talks.
They have oil too. Why don't we just invade them and give them? Why don't we bring them democracy?
That doesn't sound very peaceful,
like we did to
liberal of you,
Iraq.
Katie. Let's just invade them.
I can't be pigeonholed.
All right. You're like, I'm invading, motherfucker. Let's do it, folks. Let's do Trump.
Yes.
The DT.
Yes.
The Donald.
Man.
Yes.
What do you think about the conspiracy theory that I've seen floating around that he's working for Hillary?
I heard that.
Did you hear that?
I heard that. It's so perfect.
Well, he contributed to her Senate campaign in 2004.
Yeah. But he's just kind of schizophrenic, I think.
Yeah, he probably just, because I think he's based in New York, so she was running for New York senator, so he felt, if she's probably going to win, I'll contribute, I'll get favors. The same thing he's speaking out against now.
Yeah, same thing he's talking shit about.
Yeah. And his whole thing was, I don't need to take donations from corporations. He's like, because I'm rich, I don't need the money, so that's why I'm a good candidate, because I don't need to take that money from them. So it's moved on from where Trump was a joke and a sideshow and a distraction. It really has moved past that. No, he will not be the Republican nominee. No, he will not be the president. But right now, he's polling at 19%. Some polls have him at 20%. The next closest guy in that party, in that race, is Scott Walker. That's his name, right? Scott?
Oh, yeah, something Walker.
Walker, which
that guy from Minnesota?
The super
conservative. He's terrible.
But I don't understand that, because nobody ever talks about him, but he's consistently polling higher than Jeb Bush.
For me, that's why I don't believe those polls, because I'm like, who in the fuck is this guy?
Who is this guy?
I don't know who this guy is.
And I'm very
and where's
tuned
Rick
into...
Perry at right now?
He's like 8th or 7th, something like that.
Yeah, so I don't really...
Well, why couldn't
Bush is coming in third at 14%.
Why couldn't Trump get the Republican nomination? Why not?
Because he's going to screw up in the debates. He doesn't prepare for debates. He doesn't have knowledge of political things. He has no real solid policy stuff. He doesn't have a team of advisors. I mean, he might now get that stuff as he starts to think that he might win. But he's too candid. The same reason that people like him right now, that he's off the cuff and doesn't listen to the polls and doesn't care about what political correctness. That's what people like about him right now. But that same thing is going to be his undoing, because once you get him live on TV and you say, well, what are you going to do about this issue? What's your tax reform plan? He's got nothing. He doesn't think about it. He goes from interview to back to his business, back to his reality show.
He's not going to have a plan.
Yeah. He's not a real person.
Is that show still on the air?
I don't know.
Which one?
The Apprentice?
Oh, they just took him off. Like,
I would
NBC
think so.
cut him.
Did they cancel the show?
They canceled it. We
Yeah,
don't
well,
want shit to do with
got
you.
rid of him. They got rid of him for the Miss America thing.
Yeah,
right?
Miss
that
America.
too.
And then just,
Several other things
Yeah.
too.
And somebody else picked him up. I'm not sure. Who
Carlos
picked him
Slim, right now the second richest man in the world, but for many years the richest man in the world, is a Mexican telecommunications guy. He's worth like $80 billion. He severed ties with a lot of Trump's businesses, and that's a big blow, because that's like Bill Gates coming out against you, but worse. Bill might be number one right now. They go back and forth, but to have someone of that wealth, that magnitude of wealth, I mean, he dwarfs Trump. Trump may be a billionaire. No one really knows what Trump is worth. I mean, we remember he declared bankruptcy in the 90s.
Right.
Yeah.
But of course, that was, bankruptcy for those people is completely fake. It's a legal move. But he wasn't doing very well. But, he says he's worth $6 billion. No one really knows.
I heard 10.
Yeah, but Carlos Slim, despite whether it's 6 or 10, Carlos Slim just can
like,
step on him, buy him out 5 times over.
Right.
So that was bad for Trump, but he'll get by, I think. So what my point was with Trump is that he does have there's one thing about him that is genuinely appealing to everybody, and that helps to explain his rise in the polls, is that he is unscripted. He doesn't listen to the polls to determine how he should phrase something or what he should say. He does give, quote unquote, his own opinions. He's uncensored. I wouldn't call him honest, because I don't believe that he even believes that immigrants are rapists. I don't think he thinks that. I think that was a calculated move to get support from a certain wing of this country who appreciates that language. But what I do appreciate, what I agree with those people on is that it's cool that he's uncensored. And I kind of think that, in a way, his appeal is similar to Bernie Sanders' appeal, because Bernie is not part of the political establishment, really. He's the longest-serving independent senator in the U.S. Congress history, and he's not really in bed with the Democratic establishment, and certainly not the Republican establishment. And that'll be his downfall, ultimately, as he competes with Hillary. But I think people like them both for the same reason, that they are outsiders in a way, and that they speak their mind consistently, and that is a good thing about Trump.
The thing about him, though, that would make me suspicious is, he may be an outsider in that he's not. He hasn't participated in the political, arena. He's not one of those people. He doesn't, hang out with those people. He doesn't have anything to do with that, really. But he is part of the. He definitely benefits from and is a huge part of the. Kind of the capitalist machinery and the more conservative economic platform that leans more towards Republican values than it would democratic values.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think he's different than Bernie, because Bernie clearly has no connection to any of that.
Corporate
America.
Yeah, he's not. I don't even think he's a millionaire.
No,
much less a billionaire.
He's probably not.
I mean, his salary is what he makes from being a senator, and that's not going to make you a millionaire very quick.
I think it should be pretty clear to most Americans, but I specifically don't think that that Tea Party type people or Christian fundamentalist people in this country are going to be paying attention to Bernie Sanders because he's Jewish and because he's liberal, but he probably has the best solution to their ills, and that is, economic reform and, making sure that Americans have livable wage jobs, and making sure that poverty is addressed and that the wealthy 1% don't run everything. Unfortunately, people that are involved in the Tea Party movement and people who are Christian fundamentalists who are not wealthy, which are most of them, don't understand that they're going to need to cross off a couple of their moral majority pieces of agenda in order to get to a place where they are actually able to economically survive and have a country that's more balanced and equitable. And I think that you could have someone like Sanders as president, and you could hopefully address America's problem with job growth, and America's problem with poverty, and America's problem with, huge debt and student loan debt and people not having houses and people not being able to have a livable wage. You could address all that stuff and have ideological differences. Like, why can't you have that? Why couldn't you have someone that's anti-abortion but still is like, well, I support you in these other ways because you really have my best interest at heart more than a Donald Trump does. Donald Trump doesn't care about the rural poor,
well,
at all.
It's a good point you're making, because another thing Sanders would do is would overturn Citizens United and make elections more fair, publicly funded elections. In fact, his recent idea was to give a $100 tax credit to every American if they donate $100 to a political campaign. So eliminating corporate contributions, eliminating super PACs, making those illegal. Because the highest amount an individual is allowed to donate to a political campaign is $2,700. But Jeb Bush has raised $100 million already through a super PAC. So how did he do that? Well, super PACs are these quote-unquote independent organizations which they just skirt the law. They can receive any amount. So he's had like 47 people donated to his super PAC, and there's $100 million in it, something like
obviously
that. So
something's going wrong.
Yeah, so Bernie would get rid of that. He doesn't have a super PAC. Hillary's against super PACs, quote-unquote. Does she have one? Yes.
Well, she wouldn't be able to compete with people like Jeb Bush if she didn't.
Right, that's her excuse. But Bernie is in there doing his best, and without one.
My thing is, like, I think Donald Trump is a fucking clown.
Yeah.
But I think he's like, for me, I'm torn because it's like really good TV, because I'm like waiting to see what dumb shit he said today. I'm like, so like the other day I was like, oh, Donald Trump's not in the news. He didn't say anything stupid today, and they're like, nah, he's pretty quiet today. Or he'll, when he said that whole thing about the immigrants, the Mexicans, right? Yeah. Then a week later, he's like, "Oh, the Mexican people love me."
Oh, he's saying it in every interview now.
Well, right, and he's
talking about how much he loves Mexico.
He gotta be fucking kidding.
But then he's even being more insulting when he says that, because one of the things he said, I think this is the first thing he said in response to it, is, "I love the Hispanic people. I employ so many of them."
Right.
What dude? Fuck? So they're not your equals because they're your freaking employees.
I give them jobs. They should
labor.
Love me all over the place.
They clean my house. I love them.
Cheap
then
labor.
He's got, the one other thing that I kind of like is he's got like Republicans at each other's throats.
Oh, like, I love it. I mean,
they're on Fox News fighting.
It's a mess.
It's fantastic.
Has Fox News even come out and said anything about Trump?
Yeah, at first they treated him like a clown, and now they see, my God, he's got 1/5 of the entire nation's
so they
conservatives.
have to jump on board.
This is not a sideshow anymore. He's got 20%. Right. That's more than Bernie has of Democrats. He's got 18.
I really think he's just doing the reality TV thing. Let me say a bunch of shit. People will get all riled up about it, and I'll just keep saying crazy shit.
I think he's starting to think that he has a chance, actually.
Some cable station is going to have him back.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, since network TV got rid of him, he has got to... Because he sells. If he gets like his own show again, like on a cable station or something, it will go off the charts. People will be watching that shit like crazy, even people that hate him. Right. So it'll be so entertaining.
Yeah. But my thing with Bernie Sanders, like, I didn't know about him till you mentioned something, and then I just think for me, and I not really into politics all that much. I just think for me, looking on the outside, that Hillary is just too big.
Yeah.
It's like
she has 100% name recognition.
She's not even in the news that much, but they still mention her.
She's laying low,
and they still say her name, and she's not even on the TV.
Yeah.
Look, so as far as support, you've got Hillary Clinton at 55% of Democrat voters. And then the next highest person of the whole race in terms of support is Donald Trump at 20%.
That's crazy.
And then next down is Bernie at 18%. He's made incredible headway against her.
My friends that are Democrat, the Democratic friends I have that are talking about voting for Hillary, I'm just like, why? Like, if we can get Bernie, why not? But I really think someone like Bernie, and I thought this about Elizabeth Warren too, because I wanted her to run. But the thing about individuals like that is, I mean, they would be a dream come true for someone like me, and I think for a lot of people, if they really knew. It would be the most amazing thing to happen to this country to turn things around, but they won't last. There's too many entrenched corporate interests. There's too many powerful people who stand to lose everything if they don't maintain the status quo.
Right.
Someone like Bernie Sanders, he's going to get taken the fuck out. Like, if he got all the way to the presidency, he would get executed. Something would happen because there's no way.
They might not even have to, because I think he would be a lame duck one-term president because he has no friends in the Democratic establishment.
Yeah, he wouldn't have anyone working to make his policies pass through. They would
have
block him at every...
to cooperate with Congress.
You're right. They would block him at every turn.
Yeah, but look at how many Democrats opposed Obama on this trade deal, the TPP. A lot of liberal Democrats came out and said, no, this is a bad idea for American workers. And and Obama has huge loyalty among Democrats, massive, as much as Hillary. Bernie, who's not a Democrat and who hasn't used that infrastructure to win his elections ever.
Hasn't done anyone any favors, hasn't had favors done for him.
At least half of the Democrats will block him on most of his bills, and then the Republican-controlled Congress will 100% oppose him.
Yeah, so there's a disaster.
Yeah, it would be. But I want that disaster to happen.
I do too, but I just don't see it coming to fruition.
And then another thing, and you had to educate me on this. He looks really old.
Well, he is really old.
And
he would be the oldest U.S. president.
But how much older, or how much older is he from Hillary? Because you had told me that.
Yeah,
I was like, he looks really old.
Yeah, he's only 3 years older than Hillary.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, he gets in the White House and they start telling him all the secret stuff and what's really going on. I'm just like, shit, he looks like he's gonna have a heart attack.
Well, he looks pretty good. I mean, he does look old, but and he is old. But I think he looks okay, and he moves around and he talks fairly, but it is a problem. It's a liability. Hillary would be the second oldest president ever.
How old is Hillary?
She's 69 right now.
She doesn't look that old. Like, she looks younger than
that. She looks pretty good. And she, yesterday she released the statement by her personal physician that she's fit to be the president. Like, they all have to go through that.
Wasn't that the thing about McCain? Like, he's like one heart attack away from giving this
idiot
he would have been the oldest. And that's the thing with Dick Cheney too. One of the reasons. So most vice presidents run for president after the second term of their guy the president that they were vice president under. You guys know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Most vice presidents run for the nomination. Most vice presidents get the nomination, and most vice presidents lose the general election.
So that's usually what happens.
That's what usually happens. Now, Dick Cheney didn't even run because A, he would have been by far the oldest president ever. B, I'm not sure if that's true. Well, he would have been very old. B, he had major health problems. So if you're old and you have documented health problems, you don't inspire confidence.
Yeah.
C, George W. Bush was the second lowest approval rating of any president ever when he left office, after Nixon, who had been convicted of a crime.
Right, and had to resign.
Bush was 2 points higher than Nixon in approval. He was like 29%.
That's crazy. And Clinton got impeached.
He had great approval rating. He was good to go. So there's that, too. You were in the middle, literally the middle of a free fall recession where the economy was tanking, like as Barack Obama moved in to the White House. So that would have been bad, and he definitely would have lost. And he had terrible favorability among Americans. Everyone hated Dick Cheney. Everyone called him Darth Vader.
Yeah. Wasn't it starting to come to light at that point, the whole Blackwater thing that he was involved in?
Yes.
So the private security company, right, that actually committed quite a few atrocities, and they were getting special. They were getting all of the security contracts,
right? Government contracts, and not to mention, I mean, Halliburton is the company that Dick Cheney worked for before he was vice president, and then was a stockholder. Worked for basically after he was vice president, and that was the main contractor for like catering and weapons and cars and vans and everything over there. Oh, that's an interesting coincidence. So he didn't. So now that brings us to Biden. Joe Biden wants to run. Maybe he's considering it. And apparently his son, the terrible tragedy where his son died a few months ago, apparently his dying wish was that Joe would be president. But,
I like Joe Biden.
Yeah,
I would like Joe Biden much better than Hillary.
I mean, basically, when a vice president does win, it's like a George H.W. Bush did. It's a third term for that for the previous president, basically, because the 22nd Amendment says that president can only serve 2 terms. But when the public elects the vice president, that means
they're kind of electing
Obama
again.
They're electing him for a 3rd term. So Obama, whether he could do that, it's real iffy because like Reagan's approval ratings were higher than Obama's when he left office.
But Obama's are pretty high right now, aren't they?
They're okay.
Yeah.
46%. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not great and it's not bad. It's basically is what that is. If he comes out at 50, that would be very, very good, like successful.
If towards the end of his term he's around 50%,
that would be very and then Biden would have a chance. But Biden, you know, he always says the wrong thing,
right? Not meaning to.
But I like that about him though, because he's not all totally scripted and trying to say, you know, keep his language completely PC all the time. I like that. That's human to me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on, like. This walking on eggshell stuff and always being careful not to say the wrong thing, I think it's deceptive. I don't think most normal people, you know, go around spitting out perfectly politically correct statements all the time. Right. It feels false to me.
You know, well, I always wish that politicians that I like Obama or even Sanders. Sanders is very scripted too. He doesn't really go off the cuff very often. And I always wish they would. I always wish Obama would say, like, an interviewer would ask him, like, what's it like, you know, you can never get angry. Like, talk about that issue itself. You can never get angry. You can never sort of, you know, say what you mean. You can never say you hated a movie or you hated something. Or you can never say that you feel sick and that you don't want to continue the interview. You can never say anything because it'll all... And I wish that they would just say those things sometimes. But then I understand that if you understand the media and the way it affects people's opinions and manufacturing consent, as they call it, you don't want a politician that you like to say something like that because the media would that quote would just be all over the internet,
and everyone will be talking because they take quotes that are irrelevant, like things that don't mean what they're saying they mean, and they make a big deal out of those. So they certainly would take.
I remember
they would portray Obama as he's losing it, like he's unfit for command. Like, look, he can't control his temper in this moment, or look, he said he feels ill, he doesn't have confidence in himself, and people would view him negatively because of that. The majority of people, and even us, we might be like, oh, why did he go off script like that?
I remember he said a nigger on a podcast,
with Mark Maron,
and everybody went crazy.
Yeah,
but he was like using it in the context of
definitely
you can't even say this or whatever.
Yeah.
But they went crazy with that.
Yeah.
I was like,
I've heard.
But who's going crazy?
I've seen people.
Was it Republicans or was it like ultra liberals?
No, it's Republicans, and it's people that. It's the same people you see with the Confederate flag as their profile picture.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, he said the N-word, so I should be able to say it. It's like, no, you shouldn't, because you don't understand how he said it. Like, he wasn't calling you the N-word. Right. Yeah. He was saying, this is what you can't say.
He didn't say, get out of my way, nigger.
It's totally different.
But those people would say, though, that a white president couldn't have said it even in the exact same context. So,
well, maybe not, and maybe they shouldn't.
Right. I agree with that. That there's
and you just can't.
Like, why do these people need to say that word so much?
Right.
Like, they get really obsessed on it. They're like, how come I can't say the N-word?
Well,
they don't like restrictions on their. Like, Mark would be pissed about that. Like, he would say that you just don't get to tell me what words can come out of my mouth. And there isn't a law against saying that word.
No, there isn't a law against it, but I can say you're a dumbass for saying that.
There's a cultural rule against it.
And why would you want to say it?
It's like been made kind of cool to say.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, he says it whack because you're not making it cool.
You wouldn't be cool if you said it, bro. It would be really hateful.
Exactly.
And
it's not the same thing.
You want to use it as an everyday thing.
Yeah. So, Donald, you have a friend on Facebook who is really upset about...
I work with him, yes.
Oh, okay. There's nothing wrong with this guy. He's a conservative fellow, and he's really upset about he's upset about the whole Confederate flag coming down thing. Now, I think he might be okay with it taking it down from the State House.
Right. We finally got that debate at work, actually. I said, this is why we want to take it down.
Yeah.
But he was thinking that they're going to take it out of schools and history.
Well, he's giving
Blah, blah,
examples on Facebook.
Right.
He'll bring up a news story and say, well, there was a horse on a carousel that had the flag. It was like an old Confederate horse. You know how the different horses of all different historical. So they took that. I guess the carousel owner, the park or something, took that horse,
which he has a right to do.
Right, it's a private business. And this guy's point is, and I hope I'm expressing it correctly, is that he's saying that, look, taking it down from the State House is one thing, but what liberals are trying to do is erase it from history.
Right, that was his point. He's like they're trying to just erase the whole thing from history, and I'm like, that's not what they're trying to do. If Walmart wants to ban from selling, that's their business.
Right.
But they're not kind of trying to come up with a law to get rid of the Confederate flag completely.
Yeah,
and trying to put it in a museum. You guys lost. That's it.
And
you lost. Game over.
Yeah, and my point was. And he's like morally outraged. He goes, "This isn't right." That's basically what his post says. He's like, "This isn't right. I'm sorry, but this is." And it's weird because liberals are like, "This is right. Like this is the definition of right."
He was talking about like it was like a First Amendment issue or something like that. He was just kind of like,
it's not though, because I can speech with the Confederate flag all over the place if I want to. I can put it on my car.
Yeah.
I can put stickers on there.
Right.
I can hang it out in front of my house on a flagpole.
Yeah.
I can wear a shirt. I can do whatever I want.
Absolutely.
I guess his point is that he disagrees with the movement itself of liberal. He disagrees with it becoming popular to take it down.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, now there's a whole movement that's all about keeping it up.
Right.
So it's kind of
like
by
selling
taking
like hotcakes.
It's kind of like
Amazon.
by taking it down, we gave them the opportunity to form a group around keeping it up.
Well,
so
censorship does do that, doesn't it? To give the conservatives a point. Censorship and PC liberals, which really chap my ass as much as conservatives sometimes. They are all about censorship at sometimes, and censorship has that paradoxical effect where it makes you want to say that thing more. It's just like when kids say poop and the parents laugh. Or they say a swear word for the first time, and the parents, they
want to keep saying it.
Then they automatically, instantly know that this is a special word that has special
power. The thing is about that flag was not a big deal until this happened. Really, it wasn't a big deal to, I think, most white people. There were white people that were offended, and there were white people like, oh, it's part of my culture, whatever crap they want to say about that. I mean, I'm from the South too, and I was born there. I wasn't raised there, but most of my family is from there, and I remember seeing that flag when I was a kid, not a lot. I mean, my grandpa didn't have a sticker on his car. It wasn't like hanging out on the flagpole in front off the porch. It wasn't like that at all. It wasn't. You would see it here and there, but it wasn't a big deal. Now, I think it's become a big deal, and people want to display it all over the place because they don't want the government telling them they can't, which is fine.
Right.
Go ahead and display it like crazy.
Display it.
Do you think?
But I don't think that having it taken down from the State House in a state that is part of the Union is the same as that's not the same as someone telling you can't have a sticker on your car. All these people that believe that the Confederate flag means something more than slavery, which they're wrong, it doesn't. But if they believe that and they want to continue to fly it to represent their pride and their heritage, that's fine. No one's telling them they can't do that, and I don't think that they shouldn't be able to do that. I think that they should. One good point I heard from a woman on NPR, and I can't remember what the interview was, but they were talking about when it was happening in North Carolina and they were voting to bring it down or whatever. She was saying that she hears these white Southerners talk about how it's part of their heritage and it's Southern pride, and she said that's very insulting to me because you're telling half of the Southern population that their Southern pride and their Southern heritage doesn't count, or
it's somehow connected to the symbol of the army that fought for slavery.
And she was saying, there's plenty of black Southerners who are proud of their heritage and love where they came from. Right. You don't see them flying a Confederate flag to show that. So once again, and this kind of ties into the whole the idea that white privilege underlies everything in this country. The whole thinking, even white liberal thought of, well, can we just have Southern heritage pride, still dismisses half the population. That's white privilege. To me, white privilege is looking at something like that and not understanding that you're taking half of the population and you're just scooting them to the side because you're saying that these people, these Southerners, should be able to use the flag to as a symbol for their pride. Because you're white, you make the assumption that Southern pride is white Southern pride. Right. So there's half the population you're not even acknowledging.
But so are you saying that Southern pride in general, even apart from the flag, is problematic, is white privilege, or are you just saying that when it's attached to the flag?
When it's attached to the flag, saying like, well, and you hear a lot of those arguments about maintaining the flag, or people who say, well, I know the flag is bad because of the connotations with slavery, but I'm from the South and I'm proud of my heritage. Okay, great. But you're dismissing half of the population.
Yeah. And
so that means you're proud of your white heritage. Like, call it what it is. You're proud of your white Southern heritage.
I believe that there are people out there. It's a very small group. But I do believe there are Southerners out there who do think of that flag as having nothing to do with racism. It's a very small minority. Mm-hmm. Most people intentionally use it as a subtle racist symbol.
But they say they're not.
Right. Of course,
because the Klan just had a rally for it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But I do believe there are some people out down there for whom it has meaning that is detached from slavery. Unfortunately, these are the losers in this case. These are the people who lose out, and I'm sorry for them. There's like 8 of them, and I'm sorry for them.
All 8 of them.
I'm sorry,
I don't care that much because it's just a flag,
right?
And there are other things to be concerned about.
The historical thing about the meaning of the flag. Let's put it to bed, okay? William T. Thompson, April 23, 1863. He's the creator, designer of the Confederate flag, that battle flag of whatever it was, Kentucky or whatever. Here's his quote. As a people, we are fighting to maintain the heaven-ordained supremacy of the white man over the inferior or colored race. A white flag would thus be emblematic of our cause. Upon a red field would stand forth our Southern Cross, gemmed, preserving in beautiful contrast the red, white, and blue. Heaven-ordained supremacy of the white man over the inferior or colored race. The meaning
I think we kind of know what the flag means now.
William T. Thompson, let's end it.
Hello.
Anytime a conservative tells me that I don't know history when I talk about the Confederate flag, really grinds my gears. Yeah. That's the history. End of story. Mic drop.
Yeah. Mic drop. It was a battle flag, yes, for slavery.
Yeah, and it was
it was no matter how you slice it, it
went
right
up that goddamn flagpole in South Carolina in 1963
as a response to the civil rights movement.
Yes,
that was the response.
So it
needs to come down.
So once the Civil Rights Act was passed, that flag went up to show that they resisted the Civil Rights Act.
Right.
All right. Anyway, I'm sure everyone is convinced, and the argument is now over.
Right. Everyone, shut up.
Where was I going to go with this?
Cecil the Lion.
There's Cecil. There's Hulk Hogan, and
Hulk Hogan. Let's talk about Hulk.
Yeah, because
I want to know what you read, Donald, because I only heard a couple of things.
So the Hulkster.
What I read was that he was talking about his daughter, and she had like a guy that was promoting her and his son, who was black, and he wasn't sure if him and his daughter were sleeping together. And then at that point he was saying that he's a little bit of a racist. He doesn't really want his daughter messing around with fucking niggers, and I really don't talk to niggers that much. And then if she is gonna sleep with a nigger, I'd rather have him be 8 foot tall and be a billionaire.
Oh. It's kind of that weird mixed racism, like that Donald Sterling guy,
right?
Where he didn't even use the N-word. Sterling.
Donald Sterling didn't even use the N-word.
He was like, it's okay if you have sex with them.
Just don't bring him to the game.
Bring him to the game.
So it's okay if you have sex with them if they're a millionaire?
Well, for his daughter, like, he doesn't, if his daughter is going to sleep with a nigger, he'd rather it be an 8 foot tall basketball player that's a billionaire.
Okay, so he would have to have status.
Yeah.
So his racism is secondary to his.
So that's why he was like, that's what he was like. I'm a bit of a racist.
Classism
his
above
racism
race,
is secondary to his classism.
And so now they're what? They didn't remove him from the Wrestling Hall of Fame. Or
well,
whatever,
they didn't actually like remove him because they can't really do that because he helped them kind of get up. But like if you go to the website where he was kind of on there, they took him off.
Took his picture.
All the posters he was on that kind of promote whatever thing they got going on, they took him off. He was on a reality show they were doing on their network. They took him off. It's like you gotta go.
I think he'll be back.
I think it'll be a while before he gets back. It'll be a while before he's in my house.
It'll be a series of public apologies. I think he's already done a couple.
Yeah,
but the thing is, it doesn't matter. It's kind of disturbing to me because there'll be a push with him, like there is with everyone who makes this mistake, to apologize and say they were wrong, but they don't really feel that they were wrong.
Right.
If he had another opportunity to say all those things without getting caught, he would do it again.
Absolutely.
An apology doesn't mean he's not a frickin' racist. And by making him do that, I feel like you're encouraging people to be dishonest.
Yeah.
You're encouraging people to hide their bigotry.
You're forcing
and I would
it.
rather have your bigotry out in the open. I'd rather know that you're a racist or a homophobe or a sexist or whatever it is. I'd rather you say it and I know about it so I can make an informed choice about whether or not I want to watch your shows or buy your music or whatever.
You're forcing the racism down into like a darker corner of his consciousness. Like you're making him... He's going to keep it because he's going to resent the trouble that all this caused. So he'll resent the PC liberal.
He said it like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just coming out. So I know he said it after that.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
So it's
every day. It sounds
up
like
until
sounds like every day. He's just he gives his
it was just really nonchalant.
Like he just says it all the time.
Right.
Like just throwing that word
honestly,
out. Like
in this day and age, people don't just use that casually as just because they grew up with it anymore. If they're using it, it's on purpose.
Right. Yeah.
They might not be saying evil things. They might just be saying, "Oh, I met this N word at the other day.
But
he was cool." But
they're
doing it on purpose because maybe even for I had a friend, a white friend in high school. I won't call you out, buddy. Who I don't know if he still does, but he would use that word all the time, and he wasn't being insulting. But beyond the use of the word, he wasn't insulting black people. He was just saying, I know, and we're and I was the first time I was like, dude, what? And he was like, yeah, man, I don't believe in censorship, man. I think any word is okay.
Shut up, dude.
Like in Clerks. What was it? What the guy say?
He loved
Jungle
Clerks.
Bunny. Yeah,
he loved Clerks. That's where he got
Porch Monkey was
Kevin Smith was that was his inspiration. Actually, was that kind of thing, and there's some rationality to that, but I don't like following sort of PC rules either, but I do follow a lot of them just because it's just like a social contract. It's just how you get by without hurting someone's feelings or derailing the conversation.
Yeah, why be an asshole? Or why bring attention to yourself?
Right.
Even
now we got to talk
like,
about the word I just said.
I've even cut down my vocabulary because I used to say words like, faggot, homo.
Yeah, me
but
too.
Once I got grown enough, I was like, okay, if I'm going to like stand up and say you can't say the N-word to me, then I have to stop using some words that are offensive myself.
Yeah.
So I've,
that word was the I guess thing in high school. I mean, mostly I got called a fag, but I'm sure I used it too with my friends, and it really often had nothing to do with gayness. It was like if you punched me or something, I'd be like, "Hey, you fag!" Like it would have nothing to. But
I used it a lot too, and sometimes I use it now, and it's been kind of a conflict for me because. I mean, in high school and I'm sure through part of college, like I would use that word. It was so much just a regular part of my vocabulary, like messing with friends, like you're gay, that's so gay, fuck you, fag, blah, blah, that kind of stuff. Never thinking of it, ever consciously thinking of it as I am actually insulting a homosexual, ever. But since I came out when I was 21 and now I'm 46, I think I started to develop some awareness around that word and around using it in a derogatory way or really using it at all unless you're actually speaking about a homosexual person in a just a conversation, context of a conversation. But I've gone back and forth between using it with the same kind of I've had the same kind of thoughts about it that maybe some black people have had about the N-word, where I'm like, I'm going to take this word back. like, I'm going to fucking use it because I can.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right.
I'm going to call myself a dyke.
Mm.
I'm going to, you know,
Yeah.
things that you wouldn't want to hear, right? Things that would normally be offensive.
Right.
And I know there was a movement in the gay community to re-embrace words like queer and
Right.
dyke and faggot and use it yourself and be like, yeah, I'm a faggot, you
Yeah.
know, like, fuck you kind of thing.
And queer has achieved that.
Yeah.
That's
I
used.
heard that this morning. I was like, is it okay to say that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I use that word, and I think that was part of kind of that backlash from people trying to become more aware of that. I try not to use it in a derogatory way now, but sometimes I use it almost to be like ironic, you know, like,
queer.
well, no, I'll say something like that's totally gay,
Yeah,
you know, and it's
yeah.
like, whoa, like, I'm just going to turn all your realities on their head and I'm going to say that's gay
Right.
and I'm going to mean negative, you
Yeah.
know, but it's like, I can say it because I'm lesbian.
But if I said that in conversation, you would find it kind of ignorant, right?
No, yeah, I would, but the thing is, and this is where I don't know. This is where I kind of have a different view on language and words. I think there are contexts amongst friends where words can be used that normally you would not be able to use in, you know, polite society.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that either of you is a bad person or that you don't have respect for one another. I think that the way that language has power to harm people is when the language is being used by someone who wants to harm you and they're saying it to you to harm you. That's where language gets dangerous. And when someone says, well, you can't hurt me, it's just a word, I'm sorry, but human beings hurt human beings with words all the time. That's their primary weapon.
Yeah.
Most people don't go around beating the shit out of people, but they will say horrific things to someone. And if you can honestly say that their words don't affect you and they don't hurt you emotionally, you're a liar, because there's just no way.
Right. If you say you're a horrible person inside and out and you're a loser and nobody loves you, that can really hurt.
Those are
Right,
those are just words,
yeah,
John.
yeah, that's what Mark always says: sticks and stones, but
It's
words
not
have
true,
no
though.
power. And it's like
Mark Beef,
they
I'm
do,
sure, has
man.
been harmed by words
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
So-
words hurt.
And that extends. I assume you agree with me on this. That extends to comedy as well.
Absolutely.
The use of bad words in
Well,
comedy.
God, you look at like I was looking at some stand-up comedy from the 70s.
Oh,
And
yeah,
the early
they took
80s.
it too far. Well,
There-
nowadays
there is some
it's just,
funny ass shit
Yeah, yeah.
that I don't think at that time those people were intending to be racist or homophobic or sexist.
Right.
Yeah.
There is some very smart comedy from that time. Like
Eddie
you look
Murphy though was really because
Yeah,
he was
goes-
insulting gay people.
Yeah, he goes
yeah.
all the way in.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
sure he
with
does.
the mannerisms and everything.
And then it turns out that he's gay, but whatever.
at, is he really gay?
Well, he was
I
with a
hadn't
trans.
heard that.
Well,
he was with a trans woman, but did he know she
Did
was
he
trans?
know? I don't think he knew. And then when he
That's-
found out, he was like, "Well, let's
didn't-
do this."
He didn't know. It was a transvestite.
Right.
It was someone who was
Oh.
just dressed up, and he was with them. So maybe that was the first 10 minutes of their encounter,
Right. He
or
probably was like,
probably
"Oh."
not, that he knew this
Oh,
person
yeah.
and had done this before.
I kind of don't see how you couldn't know once it gets down to doing the actual sex act.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, once you
but
just like, whoa,
but
we
the
got
thing
some
is,
extra down there,
but the
buddy.
thing is, like on what was it? It's not Maury. It's the other one. There's one of the shows, one of the daytime or one of those crazy talk shows where they're always having guys come on there, and there'll be a trans woman who is there, and they're interviewing her, and she's like, he didn't know, blah blah, and then he comes on and she's like, I'm a man. And he's like, what?
Yeah, but that's
But
fake.
he's
How
been
did you
having
not
sex
know?
with her
Yeah.
for like 5 years.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a
But that's-
How
minute.
did you not know?
and the details are never discussed
Yeah.
as to how that's
He
possible.
wasn't
they
that drunk that night.
They
Yeah.
act completely shocked.
Yeah,
They're like
that's just
living
all
together and stuff.
completely fake, though. They pay those people.
It's so funny.
This moves into the Black Lives Matter issue. So what a lot of I guess conservatives, for the most part, are doing is they're doing this All Lives Matter. That's their response to Black Lives Matter.
Really? All lives matter?
You haven't heard this?
No, I'm being sarcastic.
Oh.
So that's what I want to say to people who say that. Like, you mean really?
Yeah.
Human life matters?
Right.
I never knew
Well, I
until
Yeah.
you did that.
Well, I saw someone who said saying All Lives Matter is like saying to someone who says save the rainforests,
Oh, I love this one.
save all the other forests too.
Like,
or
why
whatever.
just said, my friend said this
It's
to
like-
me on Friday. She was like, she said, getting upset about people saying Black Lives Matter is like someone who wants to save the redwoods saying, how come you're saying, save the rainforest? That means you're saying fuck all the other forests.
Yeah.
Like the people who are
Yep.
the people who are supporting, like, as if the people who are supporting Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, are going, oh, and you Asian lives, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Let's just send all you to the gas chamber. We don't give a shit about you. We just care about the black people.
It's an intentional misunderstanding of the point.
Yeah.
And it's also like another thing I read, another metaphor or analogy was if you're sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner table and everyone gets some turkey except you, and you say, hey, that's not fair, I should get some turkey too. It would be like if your dad was like, everyone should get some turkey just to shut you down. And it's
Even
like,
though
yeah,
you
Dad,
don't have-
I know you already have some turkey.
Can I
I'm
have
the only
some?
one without it.
Yeah.
Can I have
Yeah.
some?
Yeah.
So in other words, the word "to" T-O-O is implied at the end of this. It's Black Lives Matter "to" is the implied meaning of it. It's not
exactly.
that only
Like,
Black Lives
it's like,
Matter.
hey, guess what? You idiots, you haven't been seeing this, but our people of the black community have been dying at an inordinate, a crazy rate compared to whites
Right.
and other people of color at the hands of police officers. So guess what? Our lives are important.
Right.
Yeah.
Our lives have value. Don't
Our life
assume
matters.
that because a black person gets killed by an officer that they deserved
Right.
it, that
Exactly.
they must have provoked them. Assume the opposite.
That's what kind of gets me. Like when they shoot a black guy, there was like, "Whoa, he smoked weed
Right.
in '82."
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, well, then he's
Yeah.
obviously
Well,
Hitler.
with Sandra Bland, they're like, oh, she had a large amount of marijuana in her system.
Oh,
It's like, really?
no.
So
Oh,
that's
yeah,
why she would
deserved to die.
Yeah,
Now.
she must have had an overdose, and that's how she
like, you
died.
gotta be kidding me.
And if you look at, I think if you watch that video, it's so disturbing watching that video of that patrol officer going up to her car, and
Yeah.
you're just like, what's going to happen. You're like, God damn it! When he goes up. And she's being a fucking citizen. She's saying, why do I have to put my cigarette out?
Right.
Like, I'm in my car. And he drags her out of the car because of that? That's insane.
And she asks
that
him
would
why.
never
She does
happen
the right
to
thing.
a white person.
She does-
It just wouldn't.
No,
It
she
wouldn't.
does the right
Right.
thing and asks, "Why am I being arrested?" And he won't answer.
Yeah.
and they have to answer that. Am I under arrest? Have I committed a crime? You're supposed to ask those questions.
Right.
And if they say no, then you can literally walk away from that cop.
Yeah, I don't understand any resistance on the part of non-blacks in this country to the Black Lives Matter movement. It clearly is important. If people don't think by now, with all of the video footage we've seen and the eyewitness testimony, that black people, especially black men, are being violated and murdered at an insane rate by police officers in this country, they have their head buried in the sand. There's no way.
They
Well-
just had that guy in Cincinnati just get his head blown off, and he didn't do anything. He was just,
the guy in the car.
right.
Right?
He blew his head
Oh, my
off,
God.
and then he tried to lie and said, "Well, he tried to run me over," and he has a body cam
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And then his partner has a body cam on.
Yep.
He just shoots him in the head.
And the guy's just sitting in the car, right?
right,
The
he's
guy
just
in the
sitting
red.
in the car, right? And he just shoots
So
him.
Yeah.
unfortunately, the body cam did not prevent that crime, but
The
they
thing
did.
is,
At least it did catch
What
it.
it makes me think is, if these guys are doing this stuff with body cams, they clearly think that there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
how could you do? It seems like they'd be trying to cover it up.
Yeah.
It's almost like they think there's nothing wrong with it, and I'm going to get away with it.
Right.
I don't care if there's a body cam
Right.
showing every single detail.
We'll make up
and-
something to where I was justified.
Has
for
that
the shooting.
officer
Well-
been charged?
Oh, he got fired. He got fired,
Has
and
he
he was
been
in
charged
court
with
and
a crime?
all that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you look at it, if you look at the origins of this camera footage of police doing terrible things, if we go back to the Rodney King issue, it's pretty clear that the landscape was laid right there.
Yep.
We had indisputable video evidence that those officers nearly killed that man,
Right.
and that he was unarmed, and that there was absolutely no justification for it, and every single one of them walked away.
Right.
Every officer walked away. So that set the precedent for the video footage of the future with cell phone cameras. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't fucking matter. And that must be, I can't imagine, that must be really terrifying as a black person to
Right.
go, okay, it doesn't matter if white America sees video footage in your face, we're being murdered, they will still say it's not happening.
Yeah.
I
They'll
mean,
still say it's not happening. He was resisting. all kinds of shit.
Yeah, that's I keep seeing these conservative responses. Just comply. Just comply.
Well, and I had put up a video.
I thought
about
you were the party of freedom, of personal liberties. What are you talking about? Comply.
But at some point, like I remember Keith was on here one time. He was saying what he does, and I kind of was the same. When I get pulled over, I'm like, I make sure you can see my hands
by the book,
and when I let you know I'm reaching for my registration, I wait for you to shine your light over there so you can see. I'm moving really slow,
and I'm guessing you haven't had any problems.
I haven't had any problems yet.
Yeah,
but
it's
that's
like
only because
roulette, right?
I'm like, I'm being real cautious.
Yeah.
You know, yes sir, no sir, do not shoot me.
I act the same way.
Right. Because I don't know, because right now they can shoot me and then kill me and then bring up some stuff when I was 15. Yeah,
so do you feel now more than before that when you go out into the world, the minute you get in your car, do you feel afraid?
I feel cautious. Like I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm afraid.
What about when you see the lights? Though,
well, when I see a cop, I get nervous.
Well, I think we all do, though.
Everyone does, but I mean, do you feel different going out into the world now more than before, where you feel like, okay, now I know that no matter what's on video, that no one will believe the truth. So I can't even. Like, do you think like that your freedom is really restricted?
I think so. I think because it's just like I shouldn't have to do all that stuff.
No, of course not.
You know,
I don't do that stuff when I walk out.
Right. It's just kind of like, am I going to get pulled over today? Am I going to come home today?
Well, there must be. So there's got to be some rationality to the conservative view. Let's try to dive down and dig it up.
All right.
So, one, I think. Conservatives believe that liberal PC culture, which is dominant in a lot of ways, has actually made life easier in some ways for black people. In other words, things like affirmative action or something, like it makes it easier to get into college or something, get a job. Like,
but easier compared to what? Easier compared to white people who have the advantage?
I guess they would say that. I guess like affirmative action, for example, like if 5 people are applying to a college or a PhD program or to be a CEO, a job application, and they all have the same credentials, the black guy is probably going to get that job if they all have the same credentials, right? Because it just looks better for the company to have diversity and stuff. And that's just the point of it.
But the counter to that, I would say, is, but for the most part, corporations are filled with white America.
Yeah.
So this is like a small drop in the bucket that you get this one affirmative action person of color, but then you've got 10 other companies that are all filled with white guys.
Right. Well, yeah, but so we're trying to portray their view, as much as possible. So, I guess if I had to give an example of a way that I understand that to be true, I'll go back to high school, where I grew up in a middle class suburb in upstate New York, and the public school. Before I went to private school, I went to a public school, and it was like 96-7% white. So it was just straight across the board, as much as you can get, basically, as white as you can get. And I had a couple of black friends at that school, and like there was this one guy, Matt King, and I did notice from a very young age, and I'm pretty sure this was an honest observation of mine, not influenced by anything, that the black kids. So I'm sure there was like all kinds of racism going on that I didn't notice or understand, like subtle. But there wasn't any outright. There was no N-word. No one screamed at the black kids or anything, that I know of. But if you were black, you were automatically cool. Okay, so at the school, so like my friend Matt King, he was a nerd. He talked like me. He had like a nerdy voice. He was into like Star Wars or whatever. You just had none of the qualities that would make you cool in that school. And I know because I also had none of those. I was really pretty much as outcast as you could get. And I eventually got driven out of there by a group of kids who hated me and made my life a living hell with that whole fag thing and the gay thing. It was 2 years of really bad times. So, but this, like Matt King, like he was a nerd. He wasn't cool at all. but he got a lot more respect and sort of deference than I did. And so I attributed that to the fact that he was black. And it was like this paradoxical thing, because black people were such a minority there that it was almost like, and racism had been taught to us as like the one horrible thing never to do, that those kids had like, in my eyes at that time, like extremely limited knowledge of the world. They had an advantage. So they could just be as nerdy or whatever. They didn't have to do anything or dress cool or anything. They were just given sort of, but on the other hand, 90% of what was going on I never saw. So in other words, they probably felt weird about that treatment. That probably made them feel awkward. They probably were, because people gave them deference, that actually made them outsiders, because they weren't treated just normally like a normal person. And so all these other things that I'm sure were crappy for them. But that's my example of trying to understand where the conservatives are coming from when they think that what you have is black privilege now. And I think it's a really ignorant view, and I think it's incorrect when you take everything together and consider everything. But I do think that's the reasoning that they have behind going from Black Lives Matter to All Lives Matter. They're saying, no, we're against this movement to
single out.
In other words, yeah, a lot of times what they'll say is, you don't want equal treatment, you want special treatment. They'll say the same thing about feminism and women. They'll say, you don't want equal treatment, you want special treatment.
They say the same thing about homosexuals.
Yes, they do.
You want to be treated specially because you're gay. You want to shove it in people's faces. And it's like, no, I just want to be myself. Like, I don't have any gay or lesbian friends who wake up in the morning and are like, how can I offend a straight person today? Like, they're just trying to live and be citizens, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to work, they're going to school, they're feeding the dog, they're shipping the kid off to school, they're doing the things that everyone else does. Yeah. But the reason it had to become political is because those things were not being afforded to us. We still are in that struggle. We still are not a protected class. We aren't part of the protected classes that have been carved out in legislation such as Title VII or the Civil Rights Act. So you can fire a gay person for being gay. You can exclude them. You can exclude them from a church for being gay. You can do things like that, and we don't have federal protection. So, well, how about you, Donald? Did you ever? So I don't know how much racism or whatever you've experienced in your life, but have you ever, and you can tell us, but have you ever experienced advantage from being black that you've recognized?
In some areas, I grew up out here, and also I grew up in Louisiana, so I did experience some racism, like really, where it got down to violence, on the wrong side of the track, you know. But as far as I was out here. I went to Naylor Middle School, and we'd go play basketball. Yeah. Everybody just assumed that all the black kids knew how to play. Yeah. And I dribbled a little bit, but I couldn't shoot worth of shit. Yeah. But just because, you know, I was like the other black kids, they were like, I would always get picked first until, you know, months down the road when they figured out I couldn't shoot. But, like, you know, so you kind of get that. Or sometimes if I was going to have a fight with someone, they just kind of assumed that I knew how to fight. They're intimidated by you. Because I hung out with the tough crowd of the other black and Mexican kids, so they just assumed that I knew how to fight. But it to me, I was like, damn, I'm just going to kick my ass.
You're scared like anyone else.
Right, but, you know, I kind of got that. But
it's so little, though, you know. It's so few things.
Just little things, but other than that, no. The racism when I was in Louisiana, of my great-grandmother and my great-aunts would tell me, like, if you're going to go across the track, because it's an old town where my mom is from, they still have the track. If you're going to go across, you need to go with someone. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand that. And I was just like, I'm just going to go to the store and get me a soda. Mm-hmm. I'll just go. Yeah. You know? And I had like a little teenage moment where I was mad at everybody. So I'm just going to take a walk. So I go get me a soda. And I mean, I come out of the store and there's just some white guys. And they're like, what are you doing over here, nigga?
Oh, my God.
And I'm like,
I
was like, oh. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of blocked me off. And hit one guy with my soda, and I was trying to take off, but my cousins knew I was over there by myself.
Oh,
so they were like running to me, and then we had this confrontation, and that was my first of somebody looking at me and saying, "What are you doing over here, nigga?"
Jesus.
Like I was like,
wow, that town was really.
But I didn't know, I didn't know what to do, like, because I was before that. I was, hey, what's up, my nigga? Hey, that's my nigga over there. Yeah. But now it's like, it's different. Yeah, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like.
So after that happened to you, what? Did things like that continue to happen to you there, or
no? Because after that, I kind of got you got to kind of walk with somebody.
But that's only because you started being careful,
right?
Just it's not because it stopped happening or that anything changed.
Nothing. Yeah.
Another example of this kind of attitude is when I used to work for this old lady, and she would always say, "Why do I have to press 1 for English when I call a company?"
My sister does that.
There's so like a lot of people are mad. Why do I have to do that? Yeah. It's like I guess I get where it's coming.
A melting pot.
Yeah, I get where it's coming from. It's like the 1 and the 2 that's there for people who don't speak English, and I guess they resent that anyone would ever be able to come here without speaking the language. It bleeds into immigration issues where they think the standards are too lax if anyone can just come here and not even learn.
Yeah,
but. That's another. I just laugh at that. It's like, why do I have to press 1?
But there
it's
are
like,
lots.
I don't know. Like, is that going to help? How many people will it hurt if you take that away?
Just press the 1.
Just press the 1 and get over it.
Just press the 1.
Press the 1.
It's all good.
Sometimes I press the 2 just for fun because I can speak a little Spanish.
I do that sometimes on the Bank of America screens. Yeah. It'll be like Chinese, French, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah. See if I can get through this.
I just go ahead and stick with the 1. I don't want to get too confused. Go ahead,
I don't like it though when I call and it's clear that the person's from a call center in India and they have a heavy accent and they tell me their name is Jeff.
Yeah.
I want to be like, you know what? Don't lie to me, Jeff.
Yeah.
Your name's not Jeff.
Your name is not Jeff, Habib. Come on, brother. Come on, brother.
Come on, Sanjay. I can say Sanjay. It's
not
that
now.
hard.
It's just all good. Let's get real, homie.
We'll just dip into this quickly and then we'll finish her up. But philosophy in general, a lot of people don't really know what philosophy is, and a quick explanation is philosophy is just the questioning of normally unquestioned ideas or values. That's all. That's why philosophy is different from science and better than science at what it does, because science takes general principles for granted. So there are atoms, and they have this many molecules, and they teach you the language of science, and then you can do experiments within science. Mm-hmm. But philosophy questions those fundamental principles of science and of morality and everything else. That's what philosophy does, and it's actually that's why I love philosophy and do it all the time. And this show is kind of a philosophical show because radical agnosticism is also questioning fundamental principles. So I think about fundamental principles of liberal society all the time, and I like to question them. And honestly, my liberalism is more shaky than it's ever been right now as I look back into history and look at the development of these ideas. And none of them really rest on solid foundations because nothing in human life does. It's all kind of just you got to accept some principles and move on. So even things like equality or individuality, so that's a big American value. And guys, I've said it before, there's a show called Rick and Morty, and it's on Adult Swim, and it's the funniest show on TV. It's animated, little sci-fi adventure thing. It's so hilarious. But it's also really smart. And on one of the episodes, they're on this planet, and they find out that this hive mind organism has taken over all of the individual aliens on this planet. And so it's just one consciousness operating through millions of different bodies. And so they've taken over those people's bodies and their minds. And So the girl in the show that's visiting on this adventure, she's like, this is terrible. Like, they've taken the individuality from these people. And you know, she's yelling at each one and saying, there must be something of you still in there. Like, the individual must be in there. Like, you got to fight the hive mind and get out. And the hive mind isn't evil or anything. It's just doing its thing and trying to take over the universe little by little. But it's not, like, mean. They're just all doing their jobs and whatever. And they've created world peace and everything because there's no conflict. It's just one consciousness. So this girl is like, you know, this classic American sort of liberal values, like this, you know, the individuality in there, you got to fight it. And so they do. They fight it, and the alien comes out of a few of them. And then first of all, before that happens, the one alien guy's like, you know that this body, the guy that I took over was a sex offender before I took over him. And she's like, okay, well, at least he was himself, like, you know. So, and then the alien comes out of a bunch of them, and then they immediately start a race war based on the shape of their nipples, because on that planet, the shape of your nipples defines your race. So a race war immediately breaks out, and chaos, you know, ensues. And the whole point is, like, you know, that show brilliantly questioned that unquestioned value of individuality and freedom that we take for granted. And I guess the philosophical question is freedom really that great? And hasn't liberalism transformed from the party or the ideology of freedom to now we're kind of like, okay, freedom, but you're not free not to serve a black person at a pizza parlor. You're not free to
I think
because we're legislating morality, right? Whereas before it was just the best case scenario, and now that's libertarianism. But it used to be liberalism that said this: the best case scenario is where there's no power structures are controlling anyone. We're all free to be who we are. But I don't think most of us really, if we thought that through to the logical conclusion, I don't think we'd really agree with that anymore.
It's like when you see the Celebrate Diversity sticker, you know who people are talking about celebrating.
Right.
They're not talking about celebrating the racist, like, you know, hillbilly that's waving his Confederate flag. They don't mean diversity in that sense. It's like just diversity amongst the nice people.
Right, like the coexist sticker doesn't have a swastika on it.
It doesn't, exactly, yeah. It does, yeah, that's a good point. So, I think, and that's what bothers me about political correctness taken to the extreme, is I think that people are afraid to speak a lot of times now, especially if they're in positions of power or they're, you know, somehow elite through, you know, their athletic connections or entertainment, or they're singers or songwriters or whatever. They are afraid to say what they really think because they're afraid of losing their status based upon their, you know, whatever their personal beliefs. And that's, you know, as a person who I guess is definitely more politically liberal than she is conservative, I can say that that's a result of liberalism I don't want to see happen.
Yeah.
I want people in this country to feel that they can say what they want to say and be who they are without being somehow ostracized and left out of society, because that's exactly the thing that as a gay woman and as a woman, that's what I feel like I've been fighting for most of my life. I don't want to be left out of society. I want to be included. I want to have the same rights and the same acknowledgement and the same opportunities that someone who is straight and you know, a straight man may have. So if I turn around and I think it's okay for this person because of their views and who they are to be ostracized over here and kept out of society, that's hypocritical. That's not what I want.
Now you're talking about the law. You don't want the law to be able to do that, but you would want, like, a Nazi to be ostracized socially, wouldn't you? You would want people to just...
Not
you would
like
want
him.
it to be the case that people don't like...
Well, yeah, but I'm not going to go around telling them they have to not like him. That's not my place.
Or trying to get him fired from his job.
No, I don't think that's right. I think that the law should not be able to ostracize those people. Also, I don't know. I mean, I don't think someone should lose their job or lose their housing because they're a racist or because they're homophobic or sexist. I think that's insane to me.
On the other hand, if they're making public statements and they're a representative of that company, you kind of have to understand the bosses.
I understand
saying,
the company wanting to get rid of them. I get that. I guess when it comes to things like public figures, you have to pay attention to that. But if someone's a Nazi and they're a clerk at Circle K, and they, you know, it's whatever, it's obvious to them I'm gay, or I see someone come in who's not white, And I don't see them doing anything illegal to that person. They shouldn't lose their job.
No.
I don't think they should lose their job.
Yeah, 'cause, like if they have a tattoo or something, or if they espouse
they
those
should cover it up.
Right, but they shouldn't get fired for it.
No.
You know, or if you find a post on their thing that says, you know, I read the Mein Kampf and I found it very enlightening. Like they shouldn't get fired for that.
Like what was it? I think there was I can't remember what it was. There was something, and this was maybe like a year ago or something, where some woman had said some messed up stuff about Ferguson, and it was on her Facebook page. And
it was a teacher, I think.
Was it a teacher?
I think so.
Well, yeah, I think. See, and that a teacher is in a role where they're supposed to be like kind of a guide and like a positive, you know, leader for these kids. If a teacher thinks that way, they need to go. But if it's someone doing a job that how they believe is not affecting other people, they can't use their beliefs to harm people in the capacity of their employment.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be fired.
Well, because I think
people shouldn't just be relegated to being like on welfare and not being able to make a living because they're a racist pig or homophobe.
Yeah,
you know?
PC liberalism, I think it defeats its own purposes, because if you have that guy get fired, he's going to just blame the Jewish conspiracy or whatever it is even more. He's going to say, look, they have all the power.
You're not teaching him a lesson.
They're in charge of our country.
Yeah, you're not
they
teaching
got me
him a
fired.
lesson.
Yeah.
You're not making him change his views. So here would maybe be the thing that you know, liberalism could do to help this situation. So let's say that someone espouses, you know, racist or homophobic or whatever views in the capacity of their employment, and you just fire them. And then they learn at the next job they better not say anything, but they still feel that way, right?
Yeah.
And then it comes out sideways somewhere. But maybe what a company could do is say, hey, this is not what we do. We don't want our employees acting like this. So we're going to show you why. Like I know this sounds kind of like it's kind of sounds like brainwashing, but we're going to educate you.
Re-education.
We're going to educate you about
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. So maybe just have them go through like a class, and not trying to brainwash them or say, if you don't believe this way or you don't succumb, then we're going to fire you. But say, this is how we believe. This is how we want you to treat the public. So if you want to keep working here, whether you continue to believe that way or not is not our business, but you can't show it in your behavior.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think just telling them that would be sufficient. I don't think like the class would necessarily really help, because anytime you try to like do a class about morality, it gets really cheesy.
People resist. You're right. It's like having the cultural diversity classes.
Yeah, it's like, here's a picture of a black hand and a white hand. Yeah, and then it's like, that's what like we want. This. Do that.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a good point. That is pretty cheesy.
Yeah. And then another basic value that I was questioning is I was noticing in children's movies and movies in general, the protagonists, the heroes, are often, if not the majority of the time, they're these outcasts, or they're nerds, or they're little cartoon kid with glasses, or someone that the bullies make fun of, and that's always the hero of American and Western culture's sort of fictional stories. And that wasn't always the case in history. I mean, you can imagine a Roman play or something, and you wouldn't probably have the outcast or the nerd or the weak child wouldn't be the hero, nor especially when you get to something like Sparta, one of the Greek states. I mean, they're an extreme example, but the weak child would probably be punted into the river, right. But
strangled immediately.
Yeah. So this, it's interesting. I don't know if you guys feel the same. It's interesting to me to take an unquestioned value and sort of dig it up and look at it. Hold it in front of you and question it. And so my question is, why is that the case in our fiction, in our cinema? And my friend Ryan's response was pretty damn good, and it was that he said that everyone feels like the outsider, whether they look like it or not, whether we think they are. Everyone feels kind of alone. They've all had the experience of being alone and stuff like that. So that was his explanation, and I didn't like that explanation because it was too good and it answered my question, and I didn't want that to happen. But it is a good one. But I still think it's it's there's a reason that wasn't popular in other times and cultures. And so if he was right, then that would be a universal value. But it isn't, I don't think. It's hard to research that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think it has something to do with Christianity and the influence of Christianity on liberalism, because Christianity is the religion of the weak and the meek and the poor, and in heaven they will be the kings, and everything is upended
but not
and reversed.
now, not in this country.
No.
There are so many wealthy people who claim Christianity and drive around in very expensive cars and live in very expensive homes.
Most of the Christians,
jets.
Most of the Christians are conservatives who do look up to the powerful.
But then what's weird about this religion, about Christianity now in this country especially, is you've got very, very, very wealthy... Well, no, it's not new, though. If you look back at the times of, like, you know, King Henry and the Reformation and all of that, the very, very, very wealthy decided, because of the king, that Protestantism was the thing. And then eventually all of the poor went along with it. And so the poor have Jesus because they need Jesus, because they're waking up every morning and their stomachs are grumbling. And the wealthy have them to control the poor. It's the same deal now. I mean, Christianity in this country is the fundamentalist evangelicals. You've got those that are very poor, and they hold on to these beliefs because they feel like they got nothing else. You've got those who are very wealthy who hold on to those beliefs because that's how they stay in power.
Some of it is, but you know, to be fair, a lot of Christianity, and probably most of it, is pretty tame and does at least follow some of the precepts of Jesus. Like my mom always, she's right in the middle of all of this, conservative liberal. She really is, like, smack dab in the middle, sees both sides. And she's, you know, when people talk about Christianity and fundamentalism, she of course knows that it exists, but she says, you know, in my circles, because she's a Catholic and she has a lot of Christian friends, in my circles, you know, you never hear that, you know, anything against gays or against
no,
blacks.
It's the extremes. It's
right,
the
right.
fundamentalist here. It's the fundamentalist of the religion that are trying to make it that way for everyone.
For everyone, right.
Yeah.
They
My
say
mom's
we're
a
the true
Christian
believers.
too, and she's like a liberal Democrat.
Yeah.
Like she would never... She sees this stuff, like the people who think that the Earth is actually only 5,000 years
Right.
old. Like, and she's like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like, you're an insane person.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
And they're in the minority. It's a gigantic minority of people who believe that. But they are, those crazy people are in the minority. But what's happened is that I think the true meaning of Christianity is represented mostly in liberalism, in that it was the influence for... You had 1,600 years of Christianity before classical liberalism emerged from European society. And so I do think it was influenced by the message of the Gospels, was saying, you know, the meek shall inherit the earth. And just basically Jesus' whole message was... And the Jewish religion, too, is based on the idea of persecution. We're the persecuted people. We're the underdogs. The Jews are the underdogs. So we're the chosen. We're actually the chosen. We failed in every endeavor. I don't want to offend any Jews, but our culture has failed in every endeavor in our history to regain our homeland until 1949 and all this stuff. And we've been kicked around from Egypt to this and that, and of course, the actual archaeological evidence shows that there were probably never any Jewish slaves in Egypt. But that's in the Old Testament, and they believe that. And so that it really is a Jewish thing. And Christianity, of course, is a Jewish thing. It's a Jewish religion. It came from... Jesus was Jewish, and it came from that culture. So liberalism, I think, does reflect those values. And... I think that's because Christianity held sway in Europe for so long that it finally burst into a political ideology. Weirdly enough, the classical liberals were against the religious authorities. They hated the Pope and the religious authorities. They didn't want to be controlled by them. So there was always... It's weird, but I do think they got their moral values from Christianity. And I think we're still in a society dominated by those moral values, and that's why our movies are all the outsider and the kid. I mean, Katie, you were saying before the show you think that there are more outsiders than popular kids total, and I think you're probably right. But there can't be more kids that have been beaten up by bullies than kids that haven't been beaten up.
Well,
by
beaten
bullies.
up by bullies is the extreme of being an outcast. You can be an outcast and not ever have gotten beaten up. You can be not part of the popular crowd and the favored crowd and not have experienced those extremes.
But don't you think that a lot of the movies I'm talking about, the kids are the victims of bullies? Maybe not getting beaten up, but the kids are mean to them. So my question is just this: why do Americans, by and large, identify with characters that are abused by bullies and outsiders and nerds when then we can't all be that guy?
Well,
like I kind of was that guy, so I understand why I like that in a movie. But why do the bullies like those movies? In other words,
well, think about it. Think about this. So, if you have a story of an underdog who is the quintessential underdog, they've been beaten, they have a crappy home life, they don't have any friends in school, like their lives are terrible, and they rise above and they're able to be the recognized one, the hero.
Like Harry Potter.
Yeah, the hero. So that makes the kids or the people who can identify with that feel good. It also makes the people who may have bullied that person feel good because they can see that on the screen and they can go, that's the way it really is. Like, and somehow absolve themselves of being the abuser.
Like they turned out
right?
all right. Like my bullying probably helped them.
No, that's not the point I was trying to make.
No.
I think it's a way for them to be in denial. To go, I like that story.
That's
the way it should be.
I'm not a bully.
Yeah, I'm not a bully.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I think that people want to absolve themselves of their guilt for persecuting other people.
That makes sense.
People are mean in school. I was horrible to some people in school.
Too.
And I had people in school that were horrible to me, right? Yeah. And it was like this pecking order thing, like, you're going to fuck with me and I'm going to fuck with the one who's under here.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I don't see myself as a bully.
Right.
I identify with that kid who was kicked around on the screen, and I somehow think that if I feel good about that kid's story on the screen, that I'm absolved of the shit I did. And I don't really think like that.
Yeah.
I may have done that stuff when I was a kid, but I'm not really like that. I'm not really a bully.
Interesting. No one sees themselves as the bully. Yeah, that is true.
And then I was thinking about like the westerns from like the 40s, the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s too, where the hero is like the cowboy who's strong and
silent
and moral and sleeps out underneath the stars, and that guy wasn't weak.
No.
And he was everyone's hero, right?
Yeah.
Everyone loved the cowboy who ran in and shot up and got all the bad guys out of town.
But that's the shift I'm talking about. There was a shift there.
After that.
Yeah, it's in the later second half of the 20th century, you get like liberalism really takes hold.
Yeah,
in America,
exalts the underdog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, all right, folks, that was a good show. Wow, that went longer than I thought. That was episode 22, everybody. Donald, thank you so much for coming, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
And
anytime.
You will be invited back.
Thank you.
Same with you, Katie. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Did you like it?
I did, yeah.
Do you guys listen to the show ever?
I do.
Do you like it?
I love
What's good about it?
I just like how because got really smart people on, and then you guys aren't afraid to argue with each other about difference of opinion. I love that.
Without getting nasty.
Yeah. Right, because sometimes I'm at home and I'm yelling too, like, no, you gotta be crazy. So
yeah.
Cool.
So that's what I like about the show.
Nice.
I like that too, and I like having a forum to be able to do that and talk about things that I might not normally talk about during the week, or by the time my week is over, I'm like, I don't want to talk about anything serious.
Yeah.
But yeah, coming in here, it's just like, oh, okay, so like this, to me, it's kind of like part of, I don't know, it kind of reaffirms the importance of communication and like hashing out ideas with other humans, rather than just staying in my own head and reading all the Facebook posts and being like, you fucking idiots.
Yeah, yeah. Social media is messing us up. You're either surrounded by like-minded yes men, or you're people that you just hate. You see the worst of them, and you're
I think I might need to take another Facebook break, because I'm starting to get really disturbed.
Me
lately.
too. I feel like mildly unhappy every time I open it up, which is more and more.
Oh, it's
and
It's
more.
this terrible addiction. It's not.
I'm enjoying my Facebook. I'm enjoying
Good
coming
for
in
you.
and ruffling some feathers.
Yeah.
And, I'll just say this and see what I get. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it.
All right. All right. We'll see you guys next Sunday, and who knows who will be here.
Hey, if if Beef doesn't come back, man, I'll come back.
All right, dude. You will be invited.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
See you.